Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today we're exploring a pretty wild, honestly unexpected connection between ancient Greek literature and, well, your modern business strategy. Specifically, we're looking at a brilliant synthesis from Dr. Tamara Patzer's work, Entelechy Volume 2, Poetics, where she takes Aristotle's ancient philosophy and maps it directly onto exactly how we build digital authority today.
So, what does Aristotle's critique of the Trojan War actually have to do with your revenue? Now, this sets up the absolute ultimate metaphorical mirror for anyone creating huge amounts of content right now. You might be sitting there thinking, look, I write articles, I post updates, I've got a newsletter. What on earth does the Trojan War have to do with my bottom line? Well, as we're going to see, the very structural flaws that plague the greatest epic poem in history, they might be the exact same flaws slowly destroying your revenue infrastructure in today's age of AI and algorithms.
Section 1. What Homer got wrong. Let's get into it. Okay, so the Iliad contains multitudes, but it actually fails Aristotle's test for narrative structure. Even though the Iliad is vast, it gives us this massive, comprehensive inventory of weapons and heroism and tragedy, Aristotle noticed a huge structural flaw. He basically spent his whole life analyzing what makes narrative structures actually work, right? And he looked at this massive epic and essentially said, okay, it's huge, but does the structure actually hold up? The Iliad definitely contains multitudes, for sure, but as a cohesive structure, it ultimately fails Aristotle's core tests. Aristotle defines something called magnitude. Now, magnitude is the appropriate scale of a narrative focusing on the relationship between its beginning and its ending, rather than just its sheer length. You see, we constantly confuse magnitude with length. We tend to think, oh, creating 1,000 blog posts, that gives me magnitude. But Aristotle said no, absolutely not. Magnitude is entirely about the relationship between the start and the finish. If the ending doesn't actually deliver on the promise made at the beginning, well, the scale is broken literally no matter how long the story drags on.
Building right on top of that is completeness. This is the structural quality of a narrative whose ending is the necessary and natural consequence of its beginning. Completeness basically means nothing can be added or removed without the whole structure losing its integrity. And this is a test the Iliad ultimately fails. In a truly complete structure, every single piece is absolutely necessary. If you can yank a whole chapter out and the story doesn't change, the structure isn't complete, it's just cluttered. Aristotle argued that the Iliad, for all its undeniable beauty, is magnificent as a partial work, but it is not complete.
Moving right along to Section 2, Magnitude Without Unity.
This brings us to the catalog of ships problem. The Iliad contains this massive section, roughly 200 lines long, enumerating every single Greek contingent. It brilliantly illustrates a comprehensive inventory that's incredibly impressive, but totally unnecessary to the actual arc of the story. Homer spends all this time listing every city, every captain, and if you've ever tried to read it, you know it's exhausting. Sure, it's specific, it's internally consistent, and yeah, it's a breathtaking piece of literature, but here's the catch. You can completely remove it, and the plot doesn't change one single bit. It's additive, not necessary.
So the really crucial point here is contrasting that ancient catalog of ships, which is just impressive completeness covering vast territory without an arc, with what Dr. Patzer calls the zip territory authority engine. In her framework, you use an organizational arc to make your territorial coverage necessary. If you're just endlessly covering territory in your content without an overarching arc tying it together, you're literally just writing your own catalog of ships. It's impressive, sure, but algorithms can't navigate it to actually grant you authority. You need an engine that makes your territorial coverage a necessary sequence of evidence.
Let's look at Section 3, the absent fall of Troy. The Iliad ends with the burial of Hector, completely skipping the fall of Troy and the death of Achilles. Homer built up this entire epic Trojan War narrative, but then just stopped before the actual climax, leaving the arc totally unresolved. Just think about that for a second. You read 24 books about this war. The narrative builds and builds toward this ultimate, inevitable conclusion, the fall of the city. And yet, the poem just ends with the burial of Hector and a temporary truce. There's no Trojan horse, no burning of the city. Crazy, right? The arc that the beginning promised simply never completes itself.
And this brilliantly illustrates a huge modern problem: the implied claim versus the delivered consequence. An implied claim is when a consequence is hinted at but never actually delivered to the reader. A delivered consequence, an explicit recognition, is when the arc is completed and the authority is clearly stated. Just like Homer implied the death of Achilles from Book 1, but never actually delivered it, so many professionals today build this massive body of work that implies they're an expert, but they never actually state the explicit authority claim. They leave the audience hanging. The arc stays unresolved.
Section 4, the authority footbridge.
Let's map these ancient mechanisms directly onto your revenue infrastructure. Look at how perfectly this translates. The rage of Achilles is your proeresis, or organizing choice. But the catalog of ships, that maps to what Dr. Patzer calls coyote content that's everywhere, impressive, but algorithmically unnavigable. The death of Achilles represents entity clarity, an explicit authority claim. The fall of Troy is your bookable claim, that specific positioning producing recognition. And the burial of Hector, that's a premature ending. So having a massive volume of coyote content without an explicit bookable claim is exactly like having a catalog of ships without the fall of Troy. You're making the reader or the search algorithm do all the heavy lifting. Aristotle's critique is essentially an authority footprint audit. Let's be crystal clear on this. Entity clarity is the fall of Troy. It's the specific, explicit authority claim that actually completes the arc the canonical record implies. If you don't build the fall of Troy into your canonical record through a highly specific authority claim, your content might be magnificent, but it is navigable by literally no algorithm. Modern AI and search algorithms are actively looking for entity clarity. They need to know exactly what you are the authority in. They don't want implied greatness, they want the explicit statement. They want the fall of Troy.
Which brings us to Section 5, Auditing Your Arc.
So you need to ask yourself this incredibly honest diagnostic question right now. Where does your canonical arc end? Does your content actually arrive at a specific, explicit authority claim? Or does it just stop at an impressive body of work? Take a really hard look at your articles, your podcasts, your books. Where's it all pointing? If it's just pointing to, hey, look, I know a lot of things, well, you've got the Iliad problem.
To fix this, there are 3 applications for your content arc. Number 1, diagnostic. Identify exactly where your canonical arc ends. Number 2, declarative. State the explicit, bookable authority claim to establish entity clarity. And number 3, organizational. Use this claim to make every element necessary rather than just additive. To avoid that Iliad problem, you have to follow these 3 steps to turn your sprawling, additive content into one organized, completed authority claim. Use that claim as the lens for everything you create from now on.
Let's put this side by side. On the left, the Iliad, magnificent as a partial work, incomplete as an authority claim. On the right, the recognition, the canonical record that completes its arc and states the claim explicitly. The canonical record that stops before the claim is just the Iliad, but the canonical record that completes its arc, that achieves true recognition. This is exactly what Dr. Patzer's framework is trying to save you from. You absolutely do not want to build a beautiful, sprawling epic that the algorithm just abandons halfway through because it has no idea how to categorize you. You want recognition.
I'll leave you to think about your own content strategy with this powerful quote from the text. The Iliad is magnificent. The fall of Troy is the recognition. Think about that for a second. Are you just building a magnificent Iliad, or are you finally ready to deliver the fall of Troy? Because in today's algorithmic landscape, magnitude without unity just isn't going to cut it anymore. You need the complete arc to claim your authority. So take a hard look at your own footprint this week and ask yourself, is it time to finally finish the story?